certain projects that we should probably be funding first. Next page, please. This is the second table on that chapter. It's the 5-year capital improvements program schedule. This table delineates the proposed capital improvements for the planned period of 2023-2028, the next 5 years. It also provides estimated costs, sources of funds. A lot of it is through grant funds, right? And the timing of projects. These projects are also listed in order of priority, and that's why the prioritization needs table was kind of important because it kind of guides us of where we should start. The schedule includes projects that are included in the water, wastewater, gas, and recreational chapters, but it also includes drainage, which derives from the drainage master plan conducted by Young Professional Resources. And the cost estimation for these projects in the next 5 years, if they were to take place in the next 5 years and there was funding for it, meaning that we got grant approval, would be $28 million. But these costs can change and vary from time to time, right? You can say something, a project costs this today and tomorrow because we can't tell what the future will change. Next slide, please. Sorry, throw it off for a second. This table is to see how much extra city debt, how much more debt the city can take on, right? The table uses standard benchmarks to evaluate current debt burden of Pearsall. Major debt issuance decisions would require more detailed studies of market interest rates, available funding packages, loans and bonds issued by other area political entities, and other factors at the time. In order to conduct this analysis, we compared the 2019 and 2020 audits of city finances, essentially, and the estimated population for Pearsall for 2022, and the estimated debt according to the Texas Bond Review Board for 2021. The estimated debt for 2021 at the end of 2021 was $13,460,000. And if we want to be, for the benchmarks that we do have, fiscally conservative based on the above criteria, which is overlapping debt, and that overlapping debt means that it's the city's burden from debt held by all jurisdictions should be no more than 10%. Those jurisdictions are the ISD and the county. And per capita bonded indebtedness, it's the amount of debt directly for each citizen for the jurisdiction should be below 1,200. If we take all of this, on the fiscal conservative side, probably the city should take up $335,000 to $5.6 million in new debt over the planning period. However, that's just that's a suggestion. There was a survey done in 2021 by Texas Municipal League indicating that for cities with a population between 7,500 and 10,000 residents, 83% of them had a general bond, a revenue bond, or a certificate obligation. And that range for general obligation debt ranged from $130,000 to $29.7 million. For a certificate obligation debt ranged from $640,000 to $45.6 million, and the revenue bond debt ranged from $210,000 to $24.5 million. If we look here, we can see that the per capita indebtedness, maybe we shouldn't take on any more debt, but when we look at direct debt as an asset's value, we can take on between $5.6 million and $18 million over the next 10 years. These are all, but these numbers, if you take on more debt, that would change how these other numbers would read. And that is the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. So, if you do have any questions on any chapter, please reach out. And if there's any need, changes that you would like to see, just because we are at the end of our contractual contract and we're going to turn into TA does not mean that I'm not going to stop working for you guys. So I appreciate your time. If there's public comment, this will be the time that public comment takes place. If there isn't any, then I can take questions if you have any.
Okay, we'll start with council. Council, if you have any questions, there's a lot of data here, a lot of really good data, but we'll open it up to the council first if you have questions for your.
I haven't, but I'm going to look into it and put some more.
Okay.
it's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot, and just to like briefly go through it, that I didn't cover 15% of the plan. Obviously, you know, it's a lot, and it also, honestly, to try to explain this to general public is really hard sometimes, right? Like, this could go way over your head. I have a master's degree, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I saying? So, I completely understand.
Also, open it up to the public. Anybody have questions?
Council, over the next 3 to 6 months, we'll be looking at this. My hope is that we can still plan some more meetings. And again, not to discount any of the chapters in the plan, but the capital improvement plan, the subdivision, the zoning ordinance, there's been maybe some minor modifications, or I'd say piecemeal stuff that's happened to the zoning ordinance. I think they date back to the 1970s, correct me if I'm wrong. But there's a lot of changes that have been made, and again, it's, to some extent, I would say that some of these changes maybe are a little difficult to follow, because there have been piecemeals to our zoning ordinance. So what's proposed, or what's in this is a revised zoning ordinance, the revised zoning map. But again, in subdivision regulations that are consistent to, I would say, best practices, correct me if I'm wrong there, but something that's consistent to what we may need as a community. And so what I would like to see over the next several months is the adoption of these ordinances, again, with revisions. Council and city attorney would review before we adopt it. But that's, you'd have a brand new subdivision zoning ordinance with changes, zoning map, base map. Base map, it's required actually, our base map should be on the wall of the city secretary's office. According to our zone, it is not. We have not had one for, I don't know,
No, the zoning map as well, right?
yeah, none, those are not, and those should be, no matter, once we all die and go off or whatever we do, those should stay permanently with the city, and of course, there's revisions, of course, but that's one of the things that we need to do, again, over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, is say, this is our map. And this is our zoning ordinance, this is our base map. And what I mean by base map, again, is the base map is saying this is our responsibility, if you will, as far as what the base map is. The city of Pearsall encompasses this entire area. And so, I wanna make sure that we at least move forward and make some of these changes, that need to be made. And then from a capital improvement standpoint, look at that. I'm saying, and people ask, well, where did you get these ideas? I think a lot of times it's, well, Grant will just come up with them. A lot of the information that came from staff. As far as capital improvements, what we've been working on, what we've been talking about, the dollars, the $28 million, that came from, a lot of it came from staff. Drainage study, the water model study, CDM Smith, the design, all that stuff is in there. Applications we currently have with the Texas Water Development Board is in there. The parks plan, the open space, excuse me, I could call it parks plan.
Yeah, it's fine.
Open space plan, that'll allow us to apply for grants for parks. And that is what he's referring to, is when we get to submitting applications for parks, we will use this plan and say, this is our, in essence, our information we're gonna use to apply for grants. We had a meeting last night, and appreciate all the council members that attended, Parks and Open Space. And so we're still waiting for input, and expecting input, whether it be the council or anybody out in the public that wants to provide any suggestions. We are gonna have some recommendations and changes to some of these maps. I think we probably still have some tweaking to do on the maps, but overall, it's a lot of data. I think a lot of it is good information. We just need to do something with it. That's basically.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
that's right. How soon can we jump on these things?
Well,
I mean, how, that's,
thank you for asking. Guys, it is gonna require that we digest this, and so there's a chapter in there, subchapter that talks about the workshops that we need to have, and so we are going to have that, and I'm gonna propose like the first Saturday in February, It's not gonna be conducive for all of us, but we gotta set the date. And I'm thinking about, it may be over optimistic, but you guys, Fred provided me with the booklet, and so, I've been reading through it, and it is an amazing document. It's what you guys that preceded us have spent a lot of money on, and they've spent a lot of time on. It is an amazing document that's full of a ton of information that we need to digest before we jump into our budget. And we'll start the budget in May, the city will, the management will, the admin will. And so we need to have digested this and understand this. And so what I'm just kind of thinking as a format, if you guys will do your homework, we'll try to do like, maybe a 3-hour workshop where we go over 5 of these chapters at a time. That way within 3 months we can have it. Now, again, if you don't study it at home and be prepared for that, 3 hours is not enough. It is a ton of information, but it is a tremendous document. And y'all, we are at a crossroads. We are at a place where we have aging infrastructure, and this council needs to address that. And how are we gonna address that? And again, I'll use the number that L&B provided. Right or wrong, it's a number that's probably close. To get everything up to par, back in 2017 was $88 million. With a $12 million budget, we cannot, and he just gave the numbers, and I'm excited to really delve into that chapter as well. Realistically, we can borrow somewhere between 5 and 25 million, and the upside is a really big upside, and so in order to do that, we have to understand where that payment's coming from, in addition to setting a regular budget, which is we're in an inflationary period, yada, yada, yada. So, digesting this information so that we can chalkboard top priorities. I mean, Parks and Rec's got some cool things, and all these things are really cool and would be great, but water is really important. Sewer, water plants, water lines, gas, the whole situation. So anyway, yes, I'm gonna, as we move into the regular meeting, in my mayor moments, I'm gonna talk about this, and I'm thinking about the first Saturday in February, and it's gonna be a workshop. Get here at 9, leave at 12, and then I'm gonna task city administrators to get you guys, little chunks may be better, the first 5 chapters, and we'll see how that goes. And so we'll get an agenda where we can time frame each one, and you guys have questions, so on and so forth. But great question, and so yes, we're gonna get onto it because we need to be ready by the time admin starts budget, which will be May.
Right, and my concern is that to jump on these situations, because we are cutting it close as far as grant deadlines.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things that we're looking at here is to go after that grant money, because it is a useful resource, and we need it here. So in order to do that, we need to move forward, like, now.
Yeah,
That's part of what I can say that the two grants that I know that the council has been mentioned of, well, one at least, but one that I know is a deadline is we're approaching is a police grant through ACOG. There's grant opportunities for that. I think that's due in February. And then there's another, the applications for the parks grant, I believe, is due in May. And there's some applications. So I know we've had some discussions, and then, looking at this, you can also look at your home grants. I mean, again, part of that is gonna require some budget. We're gonna have to budget, but in saying that, yes, sir, those are some of the grants that we can look at.
And we're gonna be addressing that in regular session, kind of the lobbyist thing that we talked about, so hold that thought, we'll be talking about tonight, yes.
But most of these grants require a match, correct, like some sort of percentage?
Most of them will. Most of them will require a match. I'll give you another example is, so if we're talking grants, and when I say grants, I'm also talking about loan forgiveness. So what's happening right now is through this other source of funding, this IJJ, $1.2 trillion, what's happening is there's, it's kind of funny, but what's happening is these state agencies and federal agencies have all this money. And I'm saying they have, it's there. And
It's printed.
what they're saying is, well, you need to apply for it either through a grant opportunity or loan forgiveness. So, for instance, like the Water Development Board, we talked about the $13 million that we talked about for water projects. they're willing, from what I'm understanding, again, assuming we qualify for the second round, is to forgive 70% of that $13 million. Now, call it a loan, call it loan forgiveness, call it a grant, I call it a grant, whatever it is, but I'm saying I don't anticipate you, seeing some of these opportunities anywhere after all this money's gone. And we're talking, I think that we spoke to Senator Cornyn's office, I believe, of the $1.2 trillion, 352 billion, was allocated for, basically passed down to the states. 352 billion of that was passed down to the states. The states then determine what they're gonna do with that money, so they'll give that money to the Water Development Board, they'll give it to, Texas Parks and Wildlife, well, I don't know about what parks, the Highway Department, and they're the ones that ultimately will say, we need money. So for instance, I got an email from TxDOT saying, we have money for sidewalks. Okay, I don't recall ever being here and ever saying that we have this money. They normally don't come and say we have all this money. They normally just wait for you to ask, and hope that they have money. But that's what I'm saying, is there's a surplus at the state level, and matter of fact, I think that also the senator with the others was here, his office, and they're saying they have a surplus, and part of that surplus is because of this money that's coming down, it's coming down from the federal government. Yes, sir. So that's kind of where we're in a unique position in the fact that I don't know how long these dollars are gonna be there, and I don't know what, I think the 70% loan forgiveness is great, and if we can do that, I'm saying on that end, I don't know that we would say no to it. I'm saying that, but it's
With that
just
being
hard for
said,
us to.
Fred, with that being said, did we budget for those two grants that is in, I mean, our budget's tight, I mean, we know how tight our budget is right
We
now.
budgeted for that, for their grant, and we just got notice, I think we're gonna also get a grant for CDBG, which we didn't think we were gonna get, which is for bar screen at the wastewater treatment plant. So there's things like that that are happening again that I would say that we probably wouldn't have got it had these additional funds not been available. So I'm saying that there are some opportunities that, quite frankly, I don't know that I'm aware of every opportunity, but I know that there's money out there. I do know that.
And so, Council, Hank, we're gonna address this tonight. So keep these thoughts about this and about timing. We'll set the workshop and look at those dates, because they are, Councilman Trino, you're exactly right. We gotta get going on this.
So,
Time is of the essence. Yes, Councilwoman.
so maybe we should have it earlier in February?
Well,
because there's-
we'll address that. That's,
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
so we'll address
You
that.
don't
So
want
we'll look at that. Okay, anything else? Anything else?
I just want to say that there was also a digital format that I think will be easier for you to disseminate to the council. You put it into USB or send it all to them,
Yeah.
and that way you don't have to make a copy of that.
Yeah, we made one for the mayor, and we prefer if we could give y'all digital copies, and on our end, I know there has to be some couple corrections here and there, but we'd like to give y'all that. I would say on that end, the best I try to do this is try to pick a chapter or two that you like, and let's disseminate it amongst the council members as opposed to, I mean, I've read all 14 chapters, believe it or not, but it is a lot of reading, and if you're interested in something specifically,
You got it.
go ahead.
Yeah, and this GIS maps, also the actual calculation books that we use for a lot of these formulas and a lot of these numbers that we came up with is also in the digital format, so you guys can take a deep dive into it.
Okay, anybody else? With that, I'm gonna go ahead, it is, acting city secretary at 6:39. I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, and with that, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Councilwoman Hernandez, second. Second by Councilwoman Garza, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Folks, we've got our next meeting at 7 o'clock. We'll start promptly, so,
Thank you so much.
Of course, I'm gonna stick around. Yeah, the resolution,